Welcome back. Tomorrow marks 10 months since President Trump's second inauguration. A new book evaluates quite favorably Trump's second term. It's called A Revolution of Common Sense: How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. Its author, Scott Jennings. He's also former Deputy Director, Political Affairs for George W. Bush. That was a long time ago. Scott, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Let's go to the title, Common Sense. In our polarized, negative polarization political world, is there a consensus about what is commonsensical anymore in America?
Well, I chose the title. By the way, thanks for having me on. I chose the title because a revolution of common sense is a phrase that Trump actually used himself in his inaugural address. And when he said it, I thought, boy, that would make a great title of a book, because it's kind of how he has rebranded the Republican Party and the conservative movement. I asked him once, I said, are you more of a conservative or just common sense guy? And he said, well, most of the time, conservative is common sense. But, he left a little wiggle room in there to operate. So, look, I think where he's been successful, he's taken issues in which most people know what the common sense view is, and he's kind of gotten on the right side of it. Take boys and girls sports, for instance, or putting boys and girls locker rooms. I called it an 80-20 issue once, but I think it's a 90-10 or a 95-5 issue. Take paper straws, a minor thing, but again, something that annoys people. So yes, I do think there's room for common sense. I just think sometimes in our politics with Trump, his opposition, they reflexively oppose everything he does, even if it happens to be the common sense thing.
And the Western civilization part of the subtitle, for some in the Trump movement, they do believe that the 2024 election was about the future of Western civilization, that it was either cracking in the middle or cracking at the edges, but cracking somewhere. Did you subscribe to that belief? And what is it about Western civilization you think the Trump 2.0 agenda is preserving?
Well, yes, I did subscribe to that. It's one of the reasons I strongly supported the president. And look, like some Republicans, I've been on a little bit of a roller coaster with him over the last 10 years. But I think we're no longer just arguing about day-to-day politics. I do think we are arguing about and fighting for the future of the West. And I don't know if he knew he was signing up for it or not. But I think Donald Trump right now is leading the fight for the future of the West on the world stage, trying to end these wars in the Middle East. I think he's made righteous decisions there. In our own culture in America, reversing the mass migration crisis that we had been suffering. So, look, I think Western civilization is under assault. I think there's a lot of political actors in our society who would like to tear it down and reinstall something much, much different. And I think a lot of conservatives from different wings of the movement and different wings of the party are united on this one belief that the West is at stake, and Trump is our fighter for it right now.
Scott, how does Trump's persistent 2020 election denialism sit with you?
Look, I understand his position on it. I think he lost the 2020 election, and I think he won handily and overwhelmingly the 2024 election. I think people brought him back because they had some buyer's remorse about moving away from him in 2020, and they wanted to get the country back on track. So, look, I'm somebody who's been a respecter of election results, and I didn't like it when people tried to say George W. Bush was an illegitimate president. And I didn't like it when the Democrats argued that Trump was illegitimate in 2016. And so I tend to think when we have elections, we respect the results and we live to fight another day. That's what he did. And he got back to the White House, and it's the greatest political comeback in modern American history.
Tell me about Jeff and Sherry Jennings.
Oh, my parents. Well, my dad, Jeff, was a garbage man and a factory worker from West Kentucky. He was the first person to tell me Donald Trump was going to be the next president. And I, of course, told him he was full of crap, but he was right.
That was way back when, back when, right?
Yeah, way back at the very beginning of Trump getting involved in national politics. But
what was your dad
on
to?
Collar. What's that?
What was your dad onto? What did he see and discover before the rest of us?
Well, my dad was a blue-collar Western Kentucky Union Democrat, the biggest Clinton guy I knew. And he, like a lot of those folks out in middle America, perceived that the political elites had stopped paying attention to people like him, had left our communities in rural middle America behind, and they heard Donald Trump speaking in a way that they imagined that they would speak if anybody ever bothered to put a microphone in their face. And he knew it right out of the gate, and I didn't. And he was right and I was wrong. Not the only time in my life that's happened, but while I was writing the book, the president gave me his hat one day, signed it for my dad, and I was able to give it to him. And I admitted to my dad, you were right and I was wrong. Here's a hat from Donald Trump.
Scott, what's the political information distribution complex? You've got 30 seconds.
Well, it's this web of Democrat operatives and media people in Washington, D.C., who are often wrong. They've been wrong about Donald Trump a lot. I was certainly part of it and was wrong about Donald Trump a lot myself. But I think his victory in November 2024 kind of
Yeah.
marked the defeat of that information distribution complex that controlled our narratives, but didn't necessarily control the truth.
Scott Jennings, I appreciate the time, sir. Good luck and thanks.